message to the billionaire class: you can't have it all.
Welcome, everybody, to the Evolution of Now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We have a nice little special for you guys. We're going to be talking about a little bit of science today with me and Jordan. Jordan's here, and we've got our buddy Michael that joins us from time to time, and it seems like more often than not usually these days. So, how's everybody doing today? How's everyone's day? I guess
Pretty
night
good.
for us now.
Yeah,
but,
it's 1:30 in the half 12 at the night right now. Just fair late.
A little bit. So, I mean, how's your day going, Jordan?
Not too bad, not too bad. Some sleep deprived, but that's just the way things are. That's just the way it's going to be.
That's just Jordan's world right there, It's just always Jordan's world.
Exactly.
What is the sleep thing you speak of?
Yeah, who does that? Who cares about that nonsense? But, yeah, so like I said, though, we're going to be talking a little bit about science. I think we're going to be transitioning the show a little bit away from the daily grind of the news for a little while, just because I have been at a point these days that I can't stand dealing with Trump anymore. The guy is such a piece of crap that it really bothers me.
Every day there is a new fuck up or something.
And just his administration has been firing and people have been leaving like basically every week. Someone else just left, I think, today. I saw as a notification. It's such a mess, man. And it's so frustrating and it just makes me so angry and I just don't want to deal with him for a little while. So we're going to talk about some interesting shit for once.
Fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We always talk about interesting shit.
Yeah, I guess.
We're an interesting show, Chris. We're an interesting show.
We're a big league show, I guess that's probably true. You're right. But today we're going to be talking about the science of eclipses. And, it's going to be some interesting stuff. And we're going to finish up the show by looking into the counter-arguments of some other science in the world today. Namely, you can call it science, I guess. I mean, if we're just being really, really loose with the word science, yeah. Pseudo-science works better, probably. Right. But I'm talking a little bit about flat eartherism. I mean, it's a little bit tied to planetary physics and all that, which is a lot of what Eclipses is dealing with. But yeah. So let's get into it, guys. I mean, yeah. Eclipses.
All right, so
yeah,
those things.
So yeah. You got something to say now?
Yeah.
Go for it, George.
Something. So I'm sure we all are very familiar with the solar eclipse that happened on August 21st, 2017. Of course, I'm talking about this year.
That happened. Wait, what?
Right. Yeah, it was on a Monday.
Oh man, I didn't even know about that. I was just taking this topic right off the top of my head. I mean,
ooh,
damn,
it's a coincidence. Just a
so
coincidence.
coincidental.
I mean, it's funny you say that. That you're kind of like unaware because you actually didn't witness the eclipse, right?
I mean, I saw as minimum of it as I could from my perspective. I mean, we didn't get much of it. We saw at least, I think we got almost like 70% of the sun blocked out. But,
and that's in New Jersey.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, the light in the area didn't really change much because you really need to get to like 90% of the sun being covered and over for there to be a very noticeable difference in light. But I was only able to really see it off of like the reflection of my phone. Like I had the phone looking in selfie mode. I was looking at the sun through the selfie mode to try and get that, but I really couldn't see anything other than like the reflection of the sun. off of it, the reflection of it, and that's about it. But I did see the crescent of the sun on that, but it probably wasn't really great for my vision either. But it's a little bit better than staring straight at it like our president did. But I digress.
Hey, I thought we weren't going to talk about it.
I have a great graph somewhere where like if you can Google, you can see what's been searched, so you can see how much people have searched certain words. If you type in "why do my eyes hurt," you will notice a spike. The day after the eclipse. It's amazing.
Oh, and you had a really fruitful discussion with someone recently about that, didn't you? Where they were talking about how that sunlight is an element that
oh god
that
I'm in some very
your body
strange
absorbs.
Facebook groups, and this person reckons that you can absorb sunlight through your eyes by staring at it. And this is amazing because they said you absorb sunlight through your eyes. You have to start slow, just a couple of minutes in the morning, but then your eyes get used to it. And I'm like, no, your eyes don't get used to it. You're going blind.
Yeah, I would have been like, no way. Can you show me?
Your eyes are losing sensitivity. Literally, you're going blind. This is what's that. Then it says, so I'm at the point now where in the morning I can look at the sun for 40 minutes at a time. I'm like, you're going blind. That's not good.
I mean, I will say
His
one
eyes
thing.
start bubbling.
I mean, at least they still apparently can see a computer screen at this point. So I mean, maybe it isn't actually affecting their vision too much. I don't know.
100% brightness.
Yeah, maybe. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, there are still people with such antiquated just ideals about the world. But, I mean, that just comes with ignorance. They just don't know. They just don't know better. But,
speaking of ignorance, our secondary part of tonight will be a little bit about that kind of thing. Just saying.
Right. So Chris and I, we are in New Jersey, so we only got to witness a partial eclipse when
Crimea River. It was on the other side of the planet from me.
Sorry, the UK got nothing. Sorry, sad.
Well, I mean,
no stamina.
Interesting. The UK didn't get anything, huh?
No, nothing at all. So I watched it on
the
NASA
gods
stream.
like us better. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
It must.
Yeah.
But like, I do know. Maybe not Britain, but I know there were certain regions within Europe, Africa, and South America, which where the partial eclipse was viewable. So,
only partial though.
That makes some sense.
Hmm?
It makes some sense.
Yeah. So apparently there's a. So we experience a total eclipse about every 18 months. At least that's like that's sort of like the estimate. So about 2 every 3 years. And this one was so important. Like this one melted people's minds because it was eyeballs. And eyeballs apparently. Because this is the first in a very long time. So in a few decades actually, I believe it was 1979 that you could see the eclipse, the total solar eclipse from multiple states. So it stretched all the way from Oregon to South Carolina, which of course
it did cut a very neat line right through the middle of the country, didn't it? I thought it was really cool. Yeah.
I mean, that hasn't happened since then, since that period. So that's why, like, I mean, how was the reception? I mean, obviously there was no reception in the UK. Like, didn't no one give a fuck about?
Just rub it in, Jordan. Just rub it in.
I'm just curious to know.
I watched it on the live stream, the NASA stream.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, I mean, people over here were, I mean, rightfully so.
You guys went mental. I was watching on the live stream, and they had, like, eclipse parties and things.
Hell yeah.
And on the live stream, they kept cutting to these 2 people, standing on a podium, and there's this guy at the left of the screen, and he was a weirdo. But anyway.
Wow. I also saw a furry in there at one point too, behind the
I'm looking at it going
commentators.
God damn, man, Americans are weird.
I think we're the greatest, the best, big league. But so let's get into the science behind eclipses, though. What's happening? How does that whole thing work?
So here's a fun one. So imagine you've got the Earth's going around the sun. Okay, we all know this. We do.
It is known.
The moon's also going around the Earth, and it's tilted at a slightly 5-degree angle, meaning that sometimes when the moon spins around, it'll go in front of the sun. And we call that a solar eclipse, and that's where the moon goes in front of the sun.
Yeah.
Because of how the solar system's angular momentum, everything sort of spins in the same plane, so things can block each other. You get Venus and stuff going in front of the sun sometimes.
Yeah.
Mercury does it a lot, I think.
Yeah,
But yeah, so sometimes by pure coincidence, the moon's about the same size as the sun. So sometimes it'll come forward and block the sun off, which is great for science.
Perspective, right?
Yeah. Which is great for science because normally the sun is so bright you can't really see anything around it. Because the sun actually has an atmosphere and it has magnetic projections coming off it and stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't see them because the sun is so bright. When it's blocked off, though, you can actually see all the solar atmosphere and the solar wind being given off and things, which is really cool and great for science because it means you can actually study the things without this massive sun getting in the way, which it does a lot.
It's very inconvenient like that.
Fun fact, it was the solar eclipse that proved what was one of the big proofs for Einstein's general relativity, because we were using Newton's mechanics at the time, and Newton's mechanics predicts a very small amount of bending for light. So light will bend, but only a little bit. Einstein's general relativity predicted light would bend a lot, but only around something very big, like a star. So what we wanted to do was measure how much light bend around stars. So what a guy did called Arthur Eddington, he flew out somewhere, probably sailed, and observed an eclipse. And what he saw was some of the stars, which should be behind the sun, were visible around the eclipse. So light is coming from the star, bending around the sun, and coming into his telescope.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's because of the amount of bending, they could work out that Einstein's general relativity was right. And it's one of the reasons we have general relativity today.
Yeah.
Sort of throw that in there.
Yeah.
I'm going to briefly mention there's another type of eclipse called a lunar eclipse, which is where the Earth gets between the moon and the sun. And what happens is the light from the sun, the red light from the sun, bends around it, not quite because of gravity, it's because of the Earth's atmosphere. It bends through the atmosphere. And because red light bends the most, the moon goes red. That's why you get blood moon.
Yeah, that's one of the lunar eclipses, right? There is also the total lunar eclipse where it's just black and you just can't see it anymore, right? Or
not quite, no. Blood moons are when it's a lunar eclipse. A new moon is something different.
All right.
That's something else.
All right. But the basic thing is cool. There's different kinds of eclipses out there, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and a couple of technical terms for you. When you're in the full total lunar eclipse, when you're in totality, they called it, you're in the moon's umbra, and the partial eclipse is called the penumbral area. Throwing that out there too.
Right. What I find so interesting is, and I never witnessed this myself, but hopefully before I die I will, which is something called a hybrid eclipse, which is you get an angular and a total solar eclipse. Maybe it'll pretty much start as one and end as another, which is pretty interesting. And of course, an angular is when the disk of the moon doesn't totally cover the sun, which creates a ring around it, which many can call a ring of fire. And so yeah, that's really, and that's of course is because, like you mentioned, Mike, the moon orbits in an elliptical fashion, which means it's never quite on one straight plane. It either dips below or it raises.
Yeah, it's tipped at a 5-degree angle compared to where the sun and Earth orbit is. It's hard to explain without diagrams.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of hard to visualize it.
It sort of has a wobble to it. The rotation of the moon around the Earth, if that helps the explanation of it. But with regards to solar eclipses, like we were mentioning, there are a few different types of solar eclipses, and there's a few different types of lunar eclipses as well. There is what's called the total solar eclipse that just happened recently in the United States here, and that's when the moon almost entirely blocks out the sun, other than the atmosphere of the sun, and that's when you can see that glow around the moon, and the rest of the sky goes black. You know, you can actually see stars at that point and everything, and it's a phenomenal sight. And yeah, maybe one day we can see that for ourselves, Jordan. It'll be
absolutely
amazing. But
yeah. Oh, you know what? I just want to add a fun fact. So, the atmosphere of the sun is actually called a corona, which is pretty fun.
Hi.
Yeah, I suppose.
If
you're into that kind of thing.
I mean, it's like you hear this word, but like, of course, it's synonymous with the beer, but you never actually quite understand what it actually means. And yeah, that's what it's referring to, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, but there's not only is there the total eclipse, there's also the annular eclipse, which is when the moon is not big enough in the sky to block out the entirety of the sun's light, but it passes in front of the sun, and you get what I think you mentioned it, a ring of the sun in there. I mean, obviously, both with the total eclipse and the annular eclipse, you get a ring, but the ring for the annular eclipse is much, much larger, and you don't get as much light blocking out. Eclipse. So, yeah. So, it's really not going to make the sky black enough for you to see the stars out there, unfortunately. Now, with regards to the hybrid eclipse, that is, you're never, unfortunately, going to be able to see the transition between a total solar eclipse and the annular eclipse, because the total solar eclipse happens at one point on the Earth, on the surface of the Earth, and at another point on the surface of the Earth, it'll be a annular. So, unfortunately, you won't be able to see those transitions unless you were in two different places at once. So, but unfortunately for all of us, I'm sorry. I don't mean to burst your dreams, Jordan.
God damn it! But you know what? One thing that I think is which is interesting is the social aspect of what a total eclipse event can cause, like the social implication. Huh?
Yeah. I was really happy with how a lot of American science institutions capitalized on it, and there was massive science outreach, and loads of people were excited. And I was like, this is the kind of thing that can get someone really interested in science. And I was so happy to see it. It was amazing.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, I mean,
they were launching weather balloons, and they were doing making their own little viewing devices and stuff. And God, it was great.
Yeah, I feel like it's one out of very few worldwide events that can actually attract the attention and the care of just about anyone. I even heard stories of like what people on Wall Street coming out to the onto the street and actually like with the glasses and gazing up at the sky, and like, you know, it just attracts everyone because it's such a magnificent opportunity that so many people get to share together, and I can't imagine anything having that effect other than science. It's so amazing how effective it can be.
Yeah. And like Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson says once in a while, you know, science brings us the goods. You know, that's what science gets us. You know, it brings us the goods, as he would call it.
Something else Neil deGrasse Tyson said, if I can just segue that. When scientists say, hey guys, there's going to be an eclipse, it's going to be exactly this spot, this is what it's going to look like, you need these special glasses to look at it, everyone's just completely happy with it, fine. It's the fun kind of science where you get to see something spectacular. When it's the kind of science that you've got to do something about, people seem a lot less willing to accept it.
Weird.
Right. Absolutely.
So when the same scientists from NASA say, hey, climate change is a thing.
Fake news.
No.
Fake news.
Yeah, fake news, fakes. Not real.
Wait,
not real.
I gotta.
Scientists don't know everything. They're wrong sometimes.
I want to fit in a Neil deGrasse Tyson line too, and that is, science doesn't care what you believe. It's like, I love that quote so much because it just completely sums up like just the challenges of accepting what science can reveal to us, can pose. I mean, it's such a great point where it's like you can be so accepting, bi-yearly or whenever, a partial or solar eclipse does happen, I guess can be viewable in specifically America, is that there's a buildup and people are very sure of it's happening, except, and the same goes for, let's say, tornadoes and just any like environmental disaster. It's always like impending because science is telling us that this thing is on its way, and we believe them. And people, they make the proper measures in order to prepare. And people, no matter what the faith, no matter who you believe in, they take this as empirical evidence, which science is giving them, and they say, hey, we got to act now. But unfortunately, like, when we're talking about climate change, I think it poses an existential crisis that so many people of different faiths aren't ready to actually face, because they have their own idea about what the ending of times is supposed to be or how it should be. So the fact that we'll be able to even be aware of a potentially world-ending event going down is blasphemy to them. It's like how can you predict what God has in store for the world? It completely just shatters the way that they look at things.
And we also brought out a few other terms here that I also wanted to try and make sense of for everyone out there. The umbra and the penumbra when it comes to the solar eclipse. Now, the umbra is a region near the moon when the solar eclipse is actually happening. It's the region, it's the dark side of the moon that the sun's light just cannot reach.
Yeah, it's the shadow caused by the moon. It's where the sun is entirely blocked out.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see this if you put your hand up to a light bulb and start moving it further and further away from the light source. You see originally your hand is like very, very large, and that's the umbra of your hand. And the further you move it away from the sun, the smaller that umbra gets, but the darker it gets as well. And so that's sort of similar to what's happening with the moon and the sun in that instance. And the penumbra is a region around the umbra where the light can still refract around and still you can still see
the sun isn't entirely blocked out.
Yeah,
it's still visible.
Yeah. So hopefully that better explains it. And the reason why there's sometimes is a total eclipse and sometimes not is actually because the orbit is elliptical. And what that means is it's sort of like egg-shaped in the way people consider it, where there is a point within the moon's orbit around the Earth where it's closer to the Earth, and there's another point where it's further away from the Earth. And so, if the solar eclipse happens to happen when the moon is really far away from the Earth, then it won't actually block enough of the sun to block out all of the sun, and you'll get that annular eclipse. Whereas if it's close enough to the Earth, it can actually give you that total eclipse, and which would be the total solar eclipse, obviously, like I said.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting the way it is right now. The size of the moon in the sky and the size of the sun in the sky are relatively similarly sized because of their distances compared to each other. And I read this little bit here about it, that the moon is about where is it? I gotta find it real quick if I can.
What stat you finding? Like the size of them all?
Yeah, the moon itself. The size of it is it's about 400 times the distance from the Earth. Wait, hold on. I need to find this. It's terrible. It was right here in front of me earlier.
Well, while you look at that, I just want to point out, like, for people who actually did get let's try to live through the ones who did actually witness the total solar eclipse. Now, so when it gets to about 90% to totality, that's when the sky begins to dim, and you start to feel a noticeable change in the atmosphere. It starts to get a little bit cold, and what's very interesting is I heard a story about about some people who were actually in Oregon, and they heard people who were probably unaware of what was going on scream like people in hysterics because they were just not informed about what was going on. but also just like the effects that it has on nature, like how crickets will start to click because because of the change in atmosphere, and birds will begin to nest, and so do squirrels, and cows begin to retreat back into their stables because it just completely fucks up their rhythm.
Yeah, and the crickets will start making noise too. Yeah,
because another thing. They just say it's nighttime and react as if it's night.
Yeah, it's interesting how it works. But I did find it here real quick. The sun's distance from the Earth is about 400 times the distance the moon is from the Earth. And the sun's diameter is about 400 times the diameter of the moon's diameter. And because these ratios very much interconnect with each other really nicely, is why we get the total eclipse. Because, like I said, when it's at its closest to the Earth, it blocks out the sun entirely, and when it's furthest away, it can't. So yeah, this is why there is the different types of eclipses, and the eclipse path will never really be the same. Just about, not for a very, very long time. The path of it varies all the time, and so I looked into it here. The very next solar eclipse that's going to be a total solar eclipse, I believe, is in 2019, and it's going to be in an area of the world where basically no one's going to be able to see it. It goes right over the Pacific Ocean, and maybe the people in Chile and Argentina might see the very tail end of it in 2019, but other than them, no one else is really going to be able to see it unless you're in
It's kind of inconsiderate of the eclipse, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really terrible. There's also going to be another one in 2020, in December 14th of 2020. It's going to go right over almost the exact same area of Argentina and Chile. So they'll actually get two in 2 years, just about. And the greatest eclipse is going to be right over Argentina. So they're going to get a pretty decent one in 2020.
Mm-hmm. But that's the amazing part about it, is that it's almost like a religious experience in a certain sense, because it's such a rarity to actually be able to witness a total solar eclipse. Yeah. So.
But the next really good one is going to be here in America again, because we're number one. And that's going to be April 8th, 2024. And it will start over the Pacific Ocean, and it'll be at its greatest eclipse actually over Mexico. and it will go across Texas, across the states, and through to Maine, and it will exit over Canada. And so we here in New Jersey will get a close call. We won't get the total eclipse here, but if we go northward into...
You'd be able to drive there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we can go north into northern New York or Canada, or if we wanted to go eastward, we have to go all the way to the northwestern point of Pennsylvania or into Ohio to go see it. But we can see it. It's not super, super far. So that'll be a total eclipse here again in the States. Next one after that, I don't even know. So, but yeah, it's interesting. We'll definitely get another shot here. It'll be from a different angle, though. This time, like you said, it came in over Oregon and left over the Carolinas. This time, it's coming in from Texas and leaving through Maine, and that's going to be a giant black X if you look at it on a map. You know, that's
no eclipse love for the UK then.
No, but I mean, at least you don't have a giant
eclipses?
Black X going across your country. That might mean something, though. That might be...
It's a little ominous.
It is ominous, if you think about it.
End of the world.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe Donald Trump will...
now just land a big meteorite or something right on the X.
That would be impressive. That would just be impressive. Oh, man. But yeah, it's really, really interesting if you look into solar eclipses and all that. It's beautiful. And even, like, we actually have a video of it from the International Space Station. It's crazy. This giant black blot on the surface of the Earth. Oh, it's amazing. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you guys may be able to catch the next one if you find yourself in Chile or Argentina, or maybe in 2024 when it comes here to the States again. That would be really cool. And so sorry, nobody cares about the UK, and they're not going to get one. So, unfortunate, sad. But that's okay. That's okay. We love our friends over in the UK, don't we? Don't we love them so much? Yeah. They're great guys.
Some, I'm sure. Some, I assume, are good people.
Yeah. So, they're rapists and criminals. Some, I assume, are great people. I don't know.
Only most of us.
Pretty much. But I think, I mean, I don't know if you guys think we've explained solar eclipses well enough, but...
discussed them quite well.
Yeah,
astrophysics in general.
Hopefully.
It's nice to know so much about science, isn't it?
Yeah, the more you know. It's great. I love science, man. So now let's look into another avenue of science, as you might say. You know, an area of maybe some might call it pseudo-science. This has been something that's been actually mainstream science, honestly, for centuries, and only within the last few hundred years has this notion really been starting to give way. You know. We are, of course, talking about flat eartherism.
Yeah, it was actually the ancient Greeks that first discovered the Earth was round.
Yeah, but who cares
a bloke
about
called
that,
Eratosthenes measured the Earth. I think he was out by like a factor of 2, but
yeah,
with nothing but sticks and a well. That's quite impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what they were able to do. But really, what happened was, I guess Christianity kind of happened. And that was the end of that one for a while. After Christianity really took hold, that was, I think, one of the main points when flat Earth started to come into tradition again, because, well, the Bible says that there's a dome above the Earth, a ice dome above the Earth, and that the Earth is flat, essentially. And, yeah, I mean... didn't really jive with their Christianity, so they just counted that off as not real. And how could it possibly be that the Earth is not at the center of the universe anyway? I mean, come on. This is the Earth we're talking about here. Come on.
We are the best.
Big league.
We're the best around.
No one gonna break me down. Or I don't know. I don't remember the words.
I'll never do that again.
I'm sorry.
You should be.
I am sorry. I'm sorry, everyone.
I'm sorry.
So sorry.
So flat eartherism. I mean, their claims. I mean, just based off the title, it seems pretty evident based off of that. But I mean, their claims are quite intriguing.
That's one way to put it. Yeah, sure.
That's maybe not the right word.
I mean, like I was saying, I mean that's one way to put it, I suppose.
I didn't say it was the right one, but it is one. Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. Did you want to go into more detail on what they have on the books here?
Well, I mean, I can. So, I mean, I have my favorite. There's some favorites that I picked out from their website. They do have a website, and they lay out all their arguments right then and there on the first page, actually. So it's like, hey, just so you know, this is what we stand for. And one in particular, which is really tickling, and that was how the oceans of the world is contained. Because if you are on a flat plane, then like where does it end? You know. And of course, their argument is that it is infinite. Okay, I get that. I mean, the concept, okay. But what about, like, how do we reach a particular end? Like, where does that happen? So apparently, their belief is that we are actually encapsulated by an ice wall, which is holding in all our oceans and pretty much just keeping things contained. Now, apparently there's danger beyond the wall that no one is aware of because no one has actually made it except for them. Apparently they have accounts of people who crossed, who made it across the wall but have never returned. So,
that's weird.
Watching way too much Game of Thrones.
Right. I mean, it's just a fun thing to poke fun at because, like, obviously, if you were to sail around the world, you would, I mean, with certain adjustments, you will make it back exactly where you started, which is just pretty much an automatic, no to that claim that they make.
I wanted to read a little bit of a passage of the Flat Earth Society's explanation of the ice wall. It says here, beyond the 150-foot ice wall is anyone's guess. How far the ice extends, how it terminates, and what exists beyond it are questions to which no present human experience can reply. All we at present know is that snow and hail, howling winds, and indescribable storms and hurricanes prevail. Because it's, Jesus, this whole sentence is ridiculous. There's no way we have human experience to know what's beyond there, but we know for a fact that there's storms, snow, hail, howling winds, and hurricanes that prevail over there. And in every direction, human ingress is barred by unsealed escarpments of perpetual ice, extending farther than eye or telescope can penetrate and become lost in gloom and darkness. Some hold that the tundra of ice and snow stretches forever eternally. It's almost as if it sounds like that Christian thing that I actually just mentioned earlier, that there's a sort of snow or an ice dome around the Earth.
Yeah. The dome is one of my favorites, I should say, because I've had a flat earther tell me that the nuclear tests during the 60s were actually a war between us and some aliens who then built the dome to contain us. I kid you not. Chris's reaction.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
they think that the Earth, the flat Earth, is covered in a dome of something, ice or glass or something. Neither of those materials could hold itself up, by the way. But yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, when there's so much wrong with an idea, you don't really know where to start.
Yeah. Oh man, that's ridiculous.
They also don't believe in gravity.
Yeah.
Now you might say, what? They don't believe in what? Yeah, jump. But yeah, apparently they don't believe in gravity. They think that, you know how you float on water because of buoyancy? They think it's buoyancy that keeps you held down to the earth because things that are lighter than air float. Yeah. They don't realize that this is driven by gravity.
Yeah.
But that's what they say. They'll say buoyancy drives. Buoyancy is why things fall down, not gravity, even though they're the same fucking thing.
I mean, haven't you seen birds? They defy gravity all the time.
Yeah, that's a common argument, actually. You say, gravity is strong enough to hold millions of tons of the earth, but not strong enough to hold down birds. And you're like, birds have wings.
Yeah. But what about insects? They also have wings.
Gee, it's always as if all these things that are flying have some wings. It's almost as if there's some force they need to push against.
Well,
what should we call this force?
They do believe in a force. So their theory is that we are traveling at about, I believe it was 32 miles per hour or per minute. I'm not exactly sure the rate. Look, it's just ridiculous. But we are constantly traveling upward, which is creating the illusion that there is a gravity, which is keeping us. They likened it to being in a fast car, and if you maintain that momentum, you're going to be pushed into the seat of the chair of the car.
Guys, we're in an elevator.
But it'd have to be constantly getting faster.
And they don't understand,
constantly get faster
and G-forces and stuff.
Yeah, you can't get faster at 10 meters per second for 6,000 years. Yeah, 6,000 years, by the way.
God.
And forever, it doesn't work like that.
Wait, they're willing to accept inertia and inertial forces, but they just can't go far enough for gravity. It's like, this is ridiculous. But I just wanted to also
someone used satellite measurements of some ground or some field somewhere and said, "Oh, it's so flat. It's one of the flattest places on Earth." They use satellite measurements. I'm like, how did you get this data again?
To compound the hilarity, so the Flat Earth Society is not without its supporters, and so they actually have an ambassador in the famed NBA player, Dr. Shaquille O'Neal. And yes, I did say doctor.
Is he a doctor?
Apparently, did he ever get to school.
I've never heard that Shaquille O'Neal had a doctorate in something. I mean, maybe he does. I mean, it's very entirely possible. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger had a master's degree in something too. So I mean, I can't see that Shaquille O'Neal might not have a doctorate. He could.
Well, like you or I, we would, if we were ever to discuss about Shaquille O'Neal. I don't know why we would, but we would just call him Shaquille O'Neal. But the Flat Earth Society took tremendous pains to highlight the fact that he is a doctor. Yeah. And so he actually has he's a quote. He has a quote that explains why. Can I read it
in my really terrible Shaquille O'Neal impression?
Please do.
It's going to be great.
Oh, please do. Please do.
It's true. The Earth is flat. The Earth is flat. So, listen, I drive from coast to coast, and this shit is flat to me. I'm just saying, I drive from Florida to California, and all the time, and it's flat to me. I do not go up and down at a 306 degree angle and all that stuff about gravity. Have you looked outside Atlanta lately and seen that these buildings? I mean, you mean to tell me that China is under us? It's not. The world's flat. Okay, alright, I'm done. Anyway, so
Wow.
I don't know if you could understand my terribleness, but yeah, he apparently he can't understand the fact that China is underneath
Yeah.
Atlanta.
A lot of them seem to think that gravity pulls you down as if there's a down, as opposed to it just pulling you towards the Earth.
Yeah.
They seem to think if gravity was a thing, it would pull you towards the South Pole somehow.
Yeah. I mean,
And all the water would just pool on the bottom half, the southern hemisphere.
I mean, to be fair to them, this was the understood norm of science and, like, of just general common knowledge for people for thousands and thousands of years, though. So, I mean, if you look back even into the 1800s, there were people making arguments. Hold on, I had a really interesting quote from a William Carpenter in a book that he wrote called 100 Proofs the Earth is Not a Globe. He wrote this in 1885, even. He says in there, quote, "There are rivers that flow for hundreds of miles towards the level of the sea without falling more than a few feet. Notably, the Nile, which in 1,000 miles falls but a foot. A level expanse of this extent is quite incompatible with the idea of the Earth's convexity. It is therefore a reasonable proof that Earth is not a globe." And he also goes on to say, if the Earth were a globe, a small model globe would be the very best because the truest thing for the navigator to take to sea with him. But such a thing that is not known, with such a toy as a guide, the mariner would wreck his ship of a certainty. This is proof that Earth is not a globe. So, I mean, it's interesting. Their proofs
Polar maps are
here.
used.
Yeah. They're
Spherical
more
maps. It's
used
just
now.
flat maps are
nowadays,
easier to-
but yeah, maybe back in his day it wasn't as proofed to bring a globe.
It's because
around.
they're easier to carry around, basically.
Yeah. But I mean,
It's easy to write on paper.
yeah, you can see though from that first one though, he thinks that, well, the Nile only drops a foot in elevation. And how could that possibly be if the Earth is convex? And they just don't understand what gravity is and how it works on this planet and how,
And the idea that the level he's measuring from is a curve. So when they say water always finds its level, that's technically true, but level is curved.
Yeah.
Because level just means you're at the same height above the Earth.
Yeah. They
Which,
just
of course,
don't seem to get that.
is a curve. Yeah. So it's dropped a foot relative to the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I wonder if they. I mean, I wish we had we had a flat earther.
Oh God, No, you don't.
Maybe we should have a special show where we bring someone on.
Maybe. I'm sure they probably aren't hard to reach.
Our brains might explode though, so we'll see.
Just if you want to hear me shout at someone, or a climate denier, even worse. God. Carry on. Sorry.
No worries. But I guess they just don't believe in the concept of geometric mass or of mass in geometry, because essentially what they're saying is I'm going to create my own theory here, which is if you look at someone and apparently you only see them at one angle, so therefore they are on a two-dimensional plane. They may turn, except I never can see through them. I can't see the other side of them. Therefore, we are living that they are two-dimensional creatures.
Well, I mean, if you have one eye, things are going to be a little bit more two-dimensional. But since you have two eyes, most people have two eyes, other than myself, unfortunately. I have glaucoma and can't really see out of one of my eyes. So I guess technically most things look more two-dimensional to me than most people. But since you have two eyes, you're not seeing things. 2-dimensionally still. It's just not possible.
Yeah, you see in 3 dimensions. That's why you have 2 eyes.
Yeah.
That's why 3D cameras have 2 lenses on them.
This might explain a lot in my insanity, too, since I only have 1 good eye, so,
How are you at throwing and catching?
I mean, not great, I guess, but...
if you cover up 1 eye, the only way you can see distance is by the size. So it's really hard to judge distance with 1 eye. It's quite fun.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I'm just now really thinking about this, and Chris and I we ride together to lunch, and
he entrusts his life in my hands while I drive.
I do, but your spatial recognition is all fucked up.
What? I've never hit anyone yet. I mean, come on, come on.
You film with confidence.
I am the best driver. You don't even know. Big league.
I'm just as crazy as these flat earthers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely insane. They guys, I had something else about them as well.
A very interesting figure as well that they decided to highlight on their website, which was they grow about 200 members per year, starting the year 2009.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. 200 members a year
across the whole world.
They're taking over.
Oh yeah, did you see that thing where they said they've got members all over the globe?
I mean, I guess that could technically be
no?
true, but
Oh, it's exactly true. They've got members all over the globe. They just don't think it's globe.
It's so dumb that I didn't even pick it up right there either. It's such a dumb fucking thing to say.
Seriously, someone sort of says to you, "Well, what's your proof that the Earth isn't flat?" And I'm like, everything.
Yeah.
Everything is wrong with this. There is nothing right going on here.
I mean, we could even do something right now to prove that the Earth is not flat.
Do you see a horizon?
Yeah, there's that. There's also that it's dark here right now in my area, but on the other side of the world, it's actually daytime.
Yeah,
that wouldn't happen with a flat Earth.
It's 1:30 in the morning for me. It's
they actually
8:30 here. Yeah.
Yeah, 8:30 for you guys.
Yeah.
Done. Time zone.
But they actually have a theory about how the Earth is, how that can be, and that is essentially they're geocentric, so they believe that the sun actually moves about the Earth. And so we'll be on a flat plane, except it's only highlighting on one area of that plane, and essentially it's going to move probably in a essentially is going to evolve around, or not around, but to the other side of the flat plane.
Yeah.
So that is how
the sun orbits around 3,000 miles above the equator and just goes round and round.
But where's the sun going? Where is it going? What is it going around? If the Earth supposedly goes on forever and it's limitless and it's infinite, how can it possibly be orbiting us? There's no dimensions that they're giving you. They're saying that the ice wall, everything outside of the ice wall is just infinite expanse.
They think it's moving in a big circle above the Earth. What's keeping it there? Why is it moving? No fucking idea. It just is.
But you would be able to see the sun at all times.
Yeah, you would. It'd just be day all the time.
Come on, guys.
Someone's done the trigonometry. If the sun's 3,000 miles up, it's 30 degrees above the horizon from the other side of the planet.
Right.
So it'd never go down. You say this to flat earthers, and they don't get it. I don't know how.
Right. Yeah. According to them, the sun oscillates just between the east and the west.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it just goes round and round. And the moon's on the opposite side of the sun, which does beg the question: how on earth does the eclipse happen?
I don't know. It's a mystery. And why is it when you even get a partial eclipse? Why is it that it's a crescent shape? You know, like it's almost like there's a rounded thing blocking out the sun. Or maybe a spherical object.
Right. Or, in their defense, a flat disk.
Oh no, we lost Jordan.
Oh man.
But you know what? It's a very simple experiment we can all try, which kind of just can make us all realize that really everything is just based on our perspective.
Shoot ourselves in the face?
That's going to come later.
Okay.
But one simple thing that we can do is if we have, say, let's say, how can I do? So let's say a beach ball, like a really big beach ball, and we put that beach ball really close to our face. So to the point where it's actually going to look like a flat plane. It's going to be so close, like right under our noses, and it's going to look flat. No, the further we step away from that beach ball, the more you'll start to notice that curvature. Now, that is just a play on perspective. Now, of course, the world is so damn expansive.
Yeah, you have to get quite far away. So why
we're just not far away enough.
There is a live stream from the International Space Station looking at the Earth. It's called the High Definition Earth Viewing Experiment, HDEV, and it's a live stream of the Earth, and you can see the curvature of the Earth on it. But yeah, it's fake, CGI.
It's fake. It's all they're just lying to us. It's not real.
But when you see images of the eclipse and the hurricanes, generally come from that. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool little thing. It's just live stream. You can stick it on, look at the Earth from the space station.
Yeah. Now, going back to the website though of the Flat Earth Society, just real quick. Now, with regards to the ice wall, they actually have a source here that you can potentially look up and find their information on where they're getting their reasoning and logic here on this post. And it's the source that they have here is by a Drury DJ, and it was supposedly written in 1983. The book's title is Antarctica Glaciological and Geophysical Folio. It was printed by Scott Polar Research Institute, which is a part of the University of Cambridge. And they have a link to the ISBN code, which is a very it's a code that a lot of libraries and especially I guess scientific researchers use the ISBN codes to help source material easier. So you click on it, and they have three websites to link to this material. This one website, Add All, I've never heard of, but I mean, okay. They also have Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com to find this book. I clicked on all three of them. The book does not exist on any of these websites. Not on a single one of them. And then I decided, you know what, maybe the ISBN code thing just doesn't work correctly to find a book on Amazon. So I just took the name of the book, Antarctica Glaciological Geophysical Folio, and put that into Amazon. Nothing. They don't have it. And so I did a Google search here, and Google Books supposedly has a record of the book existing, I suppose. They don't really have any other information. They can't really link you to where to find it. They don't have ebooks for it or anything like that. You can't find the book anywhere, it doesn't seem like. It's got 0 reviews. It does corroborate that it was written in 1983 or printed in 1983. And, I mean, most literature that has to deal with science and scientific research, how many pages do you think usually a normal science-based research book would be?
My spectroscopy book's about 300 pages.
All right. Is that about an average sized, or?
Yeah, it depends on the topic. I mean, you get K and Labie, which is like 700 pages, and that's got all the physical constants in it.
Right.
You get textbooks, which can be a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
But then you get like specialized books, which can be a few hundred.
Okay.
Why?
So this book
How many
is
pages?
18 pages. 18 pages.
Barely got past the. Fucking hell! You barely got past the contents page.
At their best, like, how can you flesh out anything scientifically in 18 pages? That amazes me. You know, like, how many pages were some of, like, going back to even the theory of relativity by Einstein. Just the theory of relativity. That had to be a few hundred pages, right? Like, how big was that?
I think when he did it as a book, it was. Newton's Principia Mathematica, am I thinking of the right book? The calculus one, that was a couple hundred pages.
I think,
Principia.
yeah, something like that, yeah.
Something like that. That was a few hundred pages. Most... I don't think flat earthers actually comprehend how much they don't know. I think they say 18 pages. 18 whole pages? Wow, that's a lot of information about one topic.
That's going to be a long read.
I don't think they can even process how much is known and that they don't know about things.
Yeah. So, yeah, this book may or may not exist. And, I can't find it anywhere on any of these sources that they sourced themselves. You can't find it anywhere. And, I couldn't find it. I found that Google Books page about the book. That's it. That's all the information that I got. It was 18 pages long. The year it was supposedly printed and the place that it was printed from, that Scott, Research Institute out of Cambridge. And that's all you get. That's all you get of it. No human being has, at this point, even reviewed the damn thing. But I digress.
It tells you something.
I mean, it tells you a little bit of something, yes. But,
to be fair, they used very small font type.
That's probably it, actually. Maybe it was like type 1 print. And,
type point not one print.
Yeah. That's good observation, Jordan. I didn't think of that.
Great idea, Jordan.
Or maybe the pages are just so fucking large that, like, maybe the page itself is like 3 miles long, you know? But that could be it, you know.
I know children's books.
Children's books would be pretty big, yeah.
Children's books are often longer than 18 pages. It's like you know those books you read to kids, which have like 2 words on each page because they can't read yet? It's just a big picture and then a couple of words.
Yeah, we had one of those recently, actually, in the show. We read a child's book recently that the oil industry put out.
Yeah.
Or the alley.
I listened to you guys.
I'm pretty sure that was over 18 pages. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Oh my god!
So, guys, can we? I guess can we say here on this show confidently that the Earth is not flat?
The Earth is really not flat.
Can we just agree on that the Earth is not flat?
So much wrong with the idea of the Earth being flat. I mean, 2,000 years ago, we realized that the Earth is not flat. And ever since then, it's been kind of stupid to think the Earth's flat. By this point, we've got satellites in space. We can look at the Earth. It is not bloody flat.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Now, flat eartherism, I've said before, has been around for a very long time. And even in a lot of different cultures. Like, even the Norse thought that the Earth was flat. And that there was a definite end of the world that was actually guarded by a sea serpent called Jormungandr. Jormungandr, or something like Jormungand, or
something like that.
Something like that. but that was their explanation of the flat Earth, that there was a definite border that serpent protected. And obviously, Christians thought that there was a ice dome around the Earth that protected the Earth and everything. There are even some Christians that think that the oceans were created and the flood was created when the ice in that shell collapsed, and that was when we had the Great Flood and all that. But
and then all the excess water ran off the sides.
Pretty much. But just saying though, this myth has been around for a very long time in a lot of cultures. But this modern flat eartherism stems back to one man that I can see, at least, a man by the name Samuel Rowbotham, something like that. He was an English writer, and he was a founder of this, what they called the Zetetic Society. And this society was based all about flat Earth and arguing that the Earth was flat. Now, that William Carpenter guy that I mentioned earlier was part of this society with Rowbotham, or Rowbottom, whatever the fuck you want to say his name. That author of the 100 Proofs the Earth is not a globe guy. So he was part of that society. There have been many different people that have run the society. There was a woman by the name of Lady Elizabeth Blount that also took on the reins of the society after Rowbotham's death in the society. And then there were guys in America that did the same thing, but the Zetetic Society was what the modern day Flat Earth Society came out of, though. Basically, what they call themselves is the Flat Earth, or the International Flat Earth Research Society, is their whole thing. And so
what do they research?
Yeah, that's a good question. Apparently the Antarctic, with but only 18 pages worth of that's basically like the explorers being like, okay, we set out from England. Okay, we just rounded Africa. We just made it to Antarctica. It's really cold here. There's an ice wall. Let's go home. That's basically the research
18 pages. It's like the front page, acknowledgements, contents, preface.
Yeah, all of those pages are included in that 18 pages.
Yeah, it's cold. There's a lot of ice.
Oh, the glossary too in the back to explain the terms and
index. Index glossary done.
There's actually like 3 pages of actual information.
And most books have like a last page as well, which is, publisher and author information. So, you're probably talking half of the book is just administrative stuff.
Guys, let him live. Let him live.
Yeah, some people think that the Earth is a cube. That's what they think it is, and like some people are saying, like even Mr. O'Neill, Shaquille O'Neal, thinks that there's no possible way that China could be underneath Atlanta. These people unfortunately do not grasp the size of the Earth very well, nor the dimensions of it or anything like that. That's why it's so easy for them to swear off these ideas and everything.
Well, I don't think anyone does grasp the size of the Earth. I don't think it's something
it's
we
tough.
can do.
It's very, very difficult.
But I think most people understand that they don't grasp the size of the Earth and just know it's really big.
Yeah.
Whereas the flat earthers don't seem to process that.
Yeah, and gravity is not just a directional thing. It doesn't go in one set direction.
Oh god.
It's so difficult to deal with this kind of insanity. But yeah.
I mean, they even bring up old conspiracies such as the moon landing was a hoax.
Of course it is. Yeah, it has to be for their rhetoric to actually, stick.
Right, and of course they added the age-old argument that it was all a government conspiracy. Just because we didn't see it happen, it is a government conspiracy. It's
NASA apparently runs the world.
Right. I was not there to see it, therefore it did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but they think because obviously NASA orchestrated this massive conspiracy to hide the fact that the Earth is flat. In order to do that, NASA would basically have to be the unilateral rulers of the world. But you might say, well, that's stupid. But they say, well, yeah, of course they are.
Yeah. Also, interesting fact, the Flat Earth Society, in their website, they actually do even mention that man that I already talked about, Samuel Rowbotham. He is mentioned in here, especially even on this Ice Wall article that they have here. He is Dr. Samuel Burley Rowbotham on here. They even added the doctor and everything to him, Oh, man. I kind of wonder now, seeing that they consider Shaquille O'Neal a doctor, who may or may not be a doctor. Wonder if they're actually just adding doctor to people just to make them sound smarter than they are. I don't know. But, at least for Samuel's credit, at least, he was a doctor back in the 1800s. He was born in 1818, I believe it was, and he died around 1888, I believe is what it was. So, I mean, he never got to see the lunar landing. He never got to see our space program or any of that. So there's no way he could have had that kind of So it's a little bit more forgivable for the other people back in history to not really grasp it, because with a lot of this stuff, especially stuff dealing with science, I was talking to Jordan earlier today. These are counterintuitive ideas to a lot of people, and it makes
some of them are.
It is a counterintuitive. You look at the Earth from your perspective, and it looks flat. It feels flat. It seems flat. There's no possible way it seems like it could be curved. But that's the intuitive side of it. It's just intuitive. It doesn't seem like it makes sense. But once you start looking deeper into it, with science, and even just being a little bit more critical of your surroundings, you start to realize it pretty quickly, Yeah.
And it opens up the broader discussion of a post-truth society, which, where there's only a gray area, it's because the trust in these institutions have crumbled, to the point where there's no validity anymore. So, and I think that's really important to note too, even beyond the Flat Earth Society. I think it's really something that the whole world is kind of, having a great deal with.
I think just this, like the Flat Earth Society, is actually a symptom of a much wider problem, which is general mistrust of science and authorities in general.
Yeah. Which is honestly not a new thing, like we were saying, it's not a new thing, and it's been around for a long time. So we can understand why some people might, latch onto these ideas, but they're not taking a critical look at these things, unfortunately for them. Being as generous to them as I can, that's they're just not being very observant of what's actually happening in this world and what we're able to do. And you can even, if you have the time and the resources, there are groups of people in the world that they're amateur astronauts. Well, maybe not astronauts, but rocket scientists. So these groups will actually create these really miniature rockets, and they'll even strap cameras on them and then shoot them up into the upper atmosphere. And with those cameras, you can literally see that the Earth is round. it's a spherical shape. You can even see from that low of a distance that, yeah, it's very round, and you can tell. Because wouldn't it really just destroy the entire idea of there being a flat Earth if you could just shoot something up into the air and then just look around and then just see, yeah, you see that? It just stretches on forever. See, I told you it's flat. But it doesn't. You can only see one side of the planet, and just another way you can go out there and poke another hole in the argument of flat eartherism. And I definitely I would promote anyone to go out and do that, because that's got to be awesome. I would love to do it myself, even. I want to be able
Chris,
to do that.
That's a very good thought. How about we do that? How about we shoot and let me finish. All of the flat earthers up until the atmosphere, and
Wow,
they'll experience it. They'll experience it
It
themselves.
just got dark really fast.
How about we just put them in
I mean,
Nothing
I
of
wasn't,
value is lost.
I wasn't going that way. I was sort of like saying that they can get in with these groups of amateur rocket scientists that shoot these rockets out there with cameras on them. Get involved with them. Hang out with them. These are cool people. That's got to be a hell of a time to build one of those things and then shoot it off, and just it's got to be so cool. Just so cool.
Yeah.
Maybe one day when I'm like really old, I'll be able to afford to do that. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. Definitely want to do that one time at some point in my life, though. Tons of fun.
And what's interesting too is, I know since we're on we're talking about it's just that I think the faith aspect is very interesting. Just we have faith in science, and even though we haven't witnessed through our eyes the being shot up into space, we take all of the footage and the writings. We take it as true, and that takes a level of faith, especially when you're not, when you aren't physically there. Their faith is in a completely other thing. I mean, once again, it's in God. Their faith is in God, and I mean, it's faith either way, except it's just kind of swung on to the other side.
I take issue with the word faith.
Yeah,
but I think I get what you mean.
Perhaps.
Well, I mean, I understand. I think. I mean, I'm not really thinking it from I guess it is synonymous with religion, but I get the concept of faith, which is even though you haven't witnessed it personally, you believe
maybe
that it's there.
Maybe it's better that it's not blind faith that you're using with science. With religion and this flat eartherism, it's all based on blind faith. Because these are the same guys that are saying, oh yeah, there's a wall around the world. You can't go there. You can't go past it, or else you'll die. So don't try. So they're the ones trying to dissuade you from actually going out and exploring and doing the footwork that they're unwilling to do themselves. So with science, though, we actually do those things and explore and figure things out. And so it's not necessarily faith that we base our trust of science on. More, maybe it's faith in the scientific method, maybe? Faith that it works correctly. And, it does seem to work correctly, in my estimations. So...
Seems to.
Yeah.
We are thousands of miles away and talking, so it seems to be working all right.
Science brings us the goods, man. We wouldn't have all these internets and all of these computers and these talkie-talk devices and stuff without science. We wouldn't have electricity harnessing without science. We wouldn't have any of this.
Right.
With that, guys, I think we should probably wrap the show up here tonight. I think we had a productive discussion on solar eclipse science. And hopefully, if there's anything we missed or anything, guys, definitely email us at our email at theevolutionofnow@gmail.com. And any other suggestions and ideas that you have of things that you want us to cover in the show or that we don't cover enough, totally send it to us, guys. Like, we are looking for suggestions. And if you guys would like to help the program out at all, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/theevolutionofnow. And we also have a Facebook page at facebook.com/theevolutionofnow as well. And you can like us on there. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll start actually posting stuff on there other than just the shows every week. But yeah, I mean, thanks everyone for showing up. Thanks, Michael, for joining us on this. And Jordan.
Yes. Which, if I can just say something, I'm actually going to be away, so I won't be on the next. I won't be on the next 2 episodes of our show, and that's because I'm going to Iceland.
Sweet.
Thanks. I'll be right on the precipice of the ice wall. So,
Pretty much.
I'll tell you guys how it is.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I make it back.
Jordan, if you can, look over the edge real quick. Not too quick. I mean, not too long, though, because those hurricanes might get you. So, be very careful.
Right. The White Walkers, too. Gotta
definitely the White Walkers. Oh, man. You don't even know.
For the watch.
And the wildlings? Oh, you don't even want to get involved with those guys. But with that, guys, thanks so much for joining us. You guys have a great, great day.
Have fun.